Hey, what's going on, yo? Now, in today's video, I want to talk about a topic that I think a lot of retainers don't seem to understand or realize as they engage with this journey, that there is a strength of dedication one can have to this path. And when one is walking this path straight and true, it leads to a specific destination, a place that God wants you to be, a place of peace, understanding, and most importantly, flow. You've stopped fighting against the universe. You're not going any way you're not supposed to. In fact, everything that happens to you, you are simply at peace with it. You are detached from this life and attached to the Lord through the life force energy you have within you and just, your spiritual connection. But your life force energy will strengthen that spiritual connection, by tenfold. But moving forward, let's get into what retainers I feel don't realize about this journey, and is that when you are weakly dedicated to it, when you are weakly dedicated to God, you may as well not be dedicated at all. It's the thing. Like when you take a lukewarm shower, this is the crux of the video. Don't be a lukewarm retainer. But when you take a lukewarm shower, tell me, is it any better than when it's purely cold? Barely, if even. It's like the whole time it's just barely warm, and you're like, may as well be cold. When you're retaining and you are a lukewarm retainer, God is looking at you and He's like, may as well not even be retaining. You may as well not even be serving me. With the way that you serve me, you may as well not even be doing it. And that's why God condemns lukewarm behavior in the Bible. But what is lukewarm on retention? What does this look like? Well, I've outlined 3 different ways in which retention can take on this lukewarm aspect. Let's start with what I feel is the most common, and certainly one I suffered with in the beginning, and that's lust. Being still one foot into the worldliness of lust while being on retention, and thinking that you can be just fine this way. This is not true. You cannot be just fine being still having eyes for lust, and I'll explain why. But this is this point of retention where you're walking around and you see a beautiful girl, and maybe she's dressed interestingly. She got some tight shorts on, or maybe some leggings or something. Sports bra, whatever it's got going on. Your eyes are drawn to that, and you, as maybe. Listen, it's okay to appreciate God's good creation as long as what He has created leads you back to Him. A lot of people get caught up in, ooh, damn, she's so fine, she's so bad, she got this, she got that. It's like, yeah, she do got that, but God made that. God created that, and not so that you could enjoy it for your selfish pleasure, for your little moment of selfishness and really vileness, because you just use this woman as an object for your pleasure. But God created that sexuality for His wonderful, harmonious marriage, for the union of man and woman in His sacred, sanctified way. That's what that's for. And when we use that in any other context outside of that, that's the devil manipulating something that God has instituted for His righteousness, for His holiness. The devil does this in so many places with, music, with the rainbow. There are so many places where the devil uses something that was meant for God and uses it for his evil intentions. But let's get back into this, because these looking at lustful images, even when you're scrolling through your phone, your social media, you're going to come across these things, and they're going to pique your lust. And it's the kind of retainer that allows their lust to be piqued, that allows themselves to be taken by these images ever yet. That's the kind of retainer that's still in this lukewarm state. And the problem with this, the point where this gets to be something that's damaging for people who are retaining, is when this follows you around. Because when you start to engage with these lustful thoughts, these lustful images, and you don't reject them, you don't immediately rebuke them and say, God, please take this away from me. Well, the demons now have a stronghold, they have a foothold in your mind. And when you go to bed at night, even when you're walking around, and when you get to the third thing that I'm going to be mentioning, when you are taken by the urges of retention, or taken by the urges of temptation. Well, again, like when you face these urges of temptation, you're going to be taken because they already have the foothold within you. When you're dreaming and you come across some beautiful seductress that's trying to invite you in with whatever situation she's doing so, tries to invite you into her folds, and you just say, hey, why not? Because every time when you were awake, you made that same decision of like, ooh, dang, that's nice. Ooh, dang. Oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? While being on retention. Well, again, the demons already had that foothold, and now they have access to you. And with that access, they can drain your seed. Be that again through a dream, be that through easily tempting you because you've already assented to it. You've already given it eyes, and you've already given it your attention. And with your attention comes their revenge and their attention. With your attention comes their attention. And trust, you don't want their attention on you. Alright, so let's move on to number 2. We talked about how lust can damage you and damage your journey on retention, but let's talk about how anger can do the exact same thing. Now, when we retain, by the first week, we see a 145% boost in testosterone. That's insane. 100, not just double, but 145%. That again, that's an insane amount of testosterone. And for one who has never had that kind of masculine power in their life, that amount of testosterone can drive one to an aggression that is unknown to them. And because it's unknown, it's difficult to control. You know, it's kind of like the guy who gets superpowers, Spider-Man, and you know, he's grabbing stuff and he's breaking, he's squeezing it, he's like throwing stuff around. That was nearly the level of power, of strength that I got to. I was just like grabbing stuff. I couldn't even control it. And it's just a lack of experience. And not only will you not be able to control your physical expressions of strength and you know, movement, but your mental and your spiritual, but that will be far more aggressive on the outburst as well as on the onset as well. And in this time where you feel this kind of extra aggression, this extra strength, you know, it's altogether too easy to find oneself caving towards you know, anger and aggressive temptations, you know. And man, I almost got into some fights at the beginning of retention just because I was so angry and not necessarily looking for it, but I wasn't looking for a fight, but if there was anyone who was even an iota who had even an iota of aggression towards me, I wanted to meet that with 1,000 times the aggression. You know, and that's something where God has called us away from that. God has called us away from strife. I forget exactly which verse it is, but he calls us in the Bible to avoid strife. He says the wise man, he is the one who will cease strife. And not necessarily avoid strife, but to cease it. That when there is a conflict, any kind of conflict engaged, that a righteous man, a wise man, will seek the way out, will seek to end the conflict, because conflict is not of God. God is perfect peace. And while God may allow these kind of these aggressive things, these conflicts to come into our lives, we have the full armor of God to face that down and then to be finished with it, not to engage with battle and to stay in this state of aggression and anger and really just negativity, you know. And this is where the devil wants you. And again, just like when you're lustful and when you're engaging with negative lust, when you engage with negative anger, because again, this is something that God made for us as well. God has this righteous anger. We are meant to be able to withstand the enemy. And so sometimes we got to be ready and fierce in our battle, aggressive with our battle. But there's also a time for peace, for calm, for rest. And that is what we must put on the front of our minds. This is the state that we must try to achieve. I think the end goal of retention, this is kind of getting ahead of myself, but the end goal of retention is sage-like energy. It's to be almost prophet-esque in that you are one with the Lord. You're walking with God at all times. And because you are walking with God, you are in a state of perfect peace. Sure, your emotions might get peaked here and there, your anger, your fear, your lust, whatever it might be, you know, your gluttony, whatever that might be, may be peaked. But a quick prayer to the Lord, simply staying with God, will allow you to return to that perfect peace almost instantaneously. Simply by going to God and saying, God, I give this to you. I submit myself before you. Please take this rage, take this away from me, God. I am not meant to have this. And if I am meant to deal with this, because this is a moment that you want me to grow stronger by experiencing it, that allow me to give me the strength so that I can experience this with all the intention that you want me to. Like just giving it all to God and allowing God to move in your life and to do what He will with you. That is how you remove this spirit of aggression, this spirit of temptation, the spirit of lust that is attached to us, that is trying to manipulate us. It cannot be when God is. So let's get to the last point that I feel most people are really struggling with on retention. So if you stay to the end of the video this far, this one's going to be a treat. When we're on retention, it can be altogether too easy to fall towards temptation. And this is for those people who are retaining. And this is like they go 2 or 3 days and then they fall right back to it. This is the kind of spirit where you don't really know why you're retaining. And even if you do, you don't have the strength to commit to it. And this is something where the demons, they roost there. In fact, they want you to build up all of your seed, all of that, so that you can spill it to them. Those 3 days, they want that. They desire that, so that when you sacrifice them, it's going to be all the more. And that's what you're doing. I hope you understand that. Most people don't. And even I simply came to this realization very recently after doing some research on the ancient practices of child sacrifice. Well, the demons, they would call people to sacrifice to them. They would say, sacrifice your firstborn. There's going to be a hurricane or some sort of natural disaster, a famine, whatever that is. Just sacrifice your child and we'll avert it. That's how the demons would do it. And so they would get people to genuinely sacrifice their blood, their children, their seed. Now in the modern day and age, we have scruples. We have certain things that prevent us, a certain level of morality that prevents us from just throwing our children to the fire. We're not so ancient. But we do not have the same scruples to prevent us from sacrificing their innocence through taking them to pride parades and showing them, trans people jerking off, twerking off and all this stuff, twerking. It's like, what are they doing? We are willing to destroy a child's innocence in that way. We're willing to sacrifice our blood by cutting ourselves. There are plenty of people who are so caught into the depths of negativity that they end up cutting themselves and truly giving a blood sacrifice to these demons. But what most people don't understand, what most men don't understand, is that when succubus and when these incubus, when these demon spirits come to you and tempt you, and you say, okay, I'm going to consent to this and I'm going to jerk off, especially when you do it regularly, when you've made it a habit, when the devil has you in the hypnotic rhythm of giving in to him. This is a state where when you have released all of that life force energy, your children, your potential children, the potential life of your seed, all their souls, all that energy goes to Satan. It goes to the powers of darkness, and they feed off of it. And the demon that was sent to you feeds, and it sends that energy to the devil. And it's just purely wicked, and it's something that the devil has continued to propagate, this sort of this atmosphere of donating and giving energy to him, even in our modern day and age, just in a way that most people don't realize. And you have these people who are simply just, they think that some people truly have visualized, these demons and stuff, and they think that they're in relationships with them. They think they're in relationships with the devil. It's like, no, that's a very one-sided relationship. You are the only one in this one who can feel love. You're the only person in the relationship who can feel love and liking and desire. Listen, bro, those demons can only feel hate, suffering, rage, all things completely negative. Anything not of God, that's what that demon is experiencing, bro. And trust, love is not one of those things. So that demon doesn't love you. That demon doesn't care about you. It doesn't like you. Its end goal is to cause the most suffering it can in your life. And the primary way it does that is by depleting your strength and giving that to the devil. Taking it away from you. Siphoning it from you and giving that to the devil. And so we have to stand steadfast against temptation. And the way to do this is to keep God with us at all times, but more importantly, to understand, well, and really there's nothing more important than keeping God with you at all times, but God has called us to understand why we are retaining, and to have such a dedication to His ways of righteousness that as soon as those temptations start to come to us, as soon as they start to reach us, we immediately call on Him. That we should immediately say, God, this is completely against what I want. This is completely against your desires for my life. And I want to align myself with you and your will. Please put yourself between me and this situation. Please put yourself between me and my desire so that I might only serve you. And that is the way that God will intercede. And even if you don't want to believe in God, you've listened to this whole video, but you don't want to believe in God, that's fine. Just simply coming to the universe, saying a prayer, gets your mind out of that lustful state, out of that emotional driven state, and puts you into the hands of logic, and puts you into the hands of the logos. being able to think rationally, being able to make a decision that is truly wise. Because think about it. Why is it wiser? Is it more rational to give up your power, to give up your strength, your testosterone, your masculinity, your power as a man in this world for 5 minutes, 10 minutes of feeling like kind of good, and then literally donating your energy to a demon? Is that a wise thing to do, or is it wiser to say, you know what, I'm not just going to give into this impulse, this little thing, and push this aside, and I'm going to keep my eyes focused on God? You know, it's the same thing with Peter. God's calling us to do the impossible. It seems impossible to control our desires, to have them under lock and key in such a way. But God is calling us to do this. He's calling us to keep our eyes on Him. And if, unlike Peter, we can truly keep our eyes focused on the Lord, and you're right? We are called to be greater than the apostles, but we have to keep our eyes focused directly on God and keep walking toward Him, stepping forward. You know, and if we can truly do that, we will reach the sage state. You know, the prophet state that God is calling us all as chosen to be in. It's a state of vigilance, it's an awareness, it's a state of truly just love and walking with God. And we all can be there. God has given us all the potential to walk with Him and be His children, but we have to seek it first. We have to care to be loved by God, and we have to love God. We have to seek Him in His ways, and God will meet us halfway. Alright, y'all. I hope that this video helps shed some perspective on why you shouldn't be lukewarm on retention, and why you should be strongly committed and firmly devoted to our Lord. Because God, He is truly all things good, all things righteous, and all things love. And when you devote yourself to that, your life is in peace. Even when you are in the darkest of situations, the most heinous of experiences, God will bring you peace. God will bring you ultimate serenity. And that's something that the devil will always be trying to take from you, through temptations, through lust, through anger, he's trying to incite all this negativity in you. But if you can manage to push that aside, to submit yourself before God and rebuke the devil, he will flee from you, and God will walk with you. Alright, y'all. Take care. Peace.